I would like to call to order the July 7, 2025 Citizens Advisory Committee. We will start with a roll call. Don?
Yep. Ogleton? Arnold? Kiefer? Johnson R.
Here.
Hodges?
Here.
Lord?
Here.
Rasso Adela?
Here.
Holloway excused. Gilmore? Here. Cooper? Knowles?
Here.
Rasso Allen?
Here.
Patel? You've got your quorum.
Thank you. First things up is the citizens with business to present to the CAC. Seeing none, we will move on to the next item on the agenda. The next item is to review and approve the minutes from the April 7, 2025 meeting. Hodges?
I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Okay, Hodges and Reagan, second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Okay, item is moved. All right. The next item on the agenda is to preview of the year 52 public input process. Heather?
Thank you. So I know we have a couple new members, so depending on where you came in the last cycle, we may have already passed this step when you came on. But just kind of for the record, when we are talking about CDBG and home, we are talking about a process where we are required to have a 5-year consolidated plan, which we do once every 5 years. We've just completed that process, and the fiscal year that just began last week is the first year of that 5-year cycle. So kind of our 5-year plan now is set. But for each program year within that 5-year plan, we also have to do an annual action plan. So for the program year that just began last week, which was July 1st, that's what we call CDBG year 51, and that action plan is already complete. But it's only July 7th, and we're already looking ahead to July 1st of 2026, because the planning process really does take a whole year to get all the pieces that you need and all the steps completed to get ready for next year's annual plan. So at any given time with CDBG, we as staff and you as CAC always have your foot in 3 different years at a time. So we've completed the year that just ended June 30th. We still have responsibilities to that year in terms of closing out the financials, completing the contracts, and doing the required reports to HUD. And that process will take us through the fall. But we're already into the current program year where we have generated our contracts, are beginning the process of notifying subrecipients of their responsibilities and when they can start requesting reimbursement. We still haven't gotten our grant agreements from HUD. We don't expect that to happen for some time yet. So in fact, our plan for the year that already started has not even yet been submitted. So that won't happen until next week. And so we're kind of underway for the year we're in. But then we also have to be looking ahead to next program year and starting the process of getting ready for that. And step 1 in that process is the public input process. So in a year where we do a 5-year plan, we usually do a bigger, more comprehensive attempts at outreach because you have to make a plan that's going to last for 5 years. In those 4 years in between, which this is one of those in between years, the action plan year, we'd still do many of the same things that we do for public input in a 5-year plan year. We still have all the surveys that we do each year. We still have all the public input meetings. In the last few years, post-COVID, we've also had a virtual public input meeting. And so I included in your packet sort of a overview of the kinds of things that we intend to do. So we don't have the exact dates yet. What we typically do is bring our sort of proposal to CAC, talk it through with you, see if anybody has any suggestions of additions or places that we could go or events that we could attend to get the input. And then what we usually do is give a week after this meeting for you all to kind of let it percolate, and especially those members who weren't able to join us today, if they have any thoughts that they want to share. At the end of that 1 week period, then we will go ahead and start setting dates for things and getting things on the calendar. And the intention is to try to do our public input in August and September, because then we take that public input and we look at, in addition to the results of those outreach efforts, we look at things like census data, we look at the data generated from our analysis of impediments to fair housing, our housing needs assessment, which are now updated, and we take all those kind of data points and roll them together, and that becomes sort of the ingredients to our annual plan for next year. And your first kind of role in setting next year's plan will happen at our October meeting. So at the October meeting, we will cover with you the outcomes of our public input process, kind of the results of the survey, and you all will have a hand in deciding what our local objectives are for the next program year. And the local objectives are, you know, the things we intend to do in a broad sense, the people we intend to help in a broad sense, which then become part of our application process. So as a recommendation body, your recommendations for the local objectives will go to City Council. They will be the ones that actually approve them or accept them. And then once they do, in October, they'll become part of our application process, which, believe it or not, will already be beginning in November. So we're, you know, on July 7th, we're already kind of have our horizon set all the way through the end of the year for what will happen with CDBG. So in terms of the proposal, as I mentioned, we do propose again doing the online survey. We have been talking with Rock Island and Moline to see if they would like to participate with us on that again. We did it together as a group last year because it was the 5-year plan, and we're still kind of talking through if we're planning to do it together again in the intervening years. So it would be our hope that we do. If we do, that's great. If we don't, we'll do our survey independently as we have in the past. And then we'll do some outreach events. Typically we go to the farmer's market, we go to the libraries, we go to Party in the Park, and make outreach opportunities, input opportunities available in places where people are already going to be, because as we all know, it's hard to get somebody to come out to a public meeting sometimes, so you have to go find them where they already are coming because there's something fun there, and then we kind of wave a survey at them while they're there. So Dawn has been known to track a person down in a library hallway and be like, hey, we have a meeting down the hall. So we have stickers, we have coloring for the kids, you know, things like that to try to, you know, generate some interest. Even if the parents don't want to come to us, we can attract the children with shiny things and then they come to us. So so that's kind of our plan in broad strokes, but we are open for input and suggestion and discussions as always.
Thank you, Heather. Does anybody has any questions? Okay, no? All right. For the new members, as Heather sends out the information, if we can please share it on our social media. Nowadays, it seems to be the most effective way to get to people. So thank you, ladies.
Yes, and that's a very good point. We do we rely on the CAC for a lot of things, but one of the main things that we rely on you is for your personal and professional networks, to be able to share those things as the well-connected residents that you are, to share those, you know, by social media, but also with friends and family and coworkers and, you know, professional organizations. So we're happy for any outreach that you can do on our behalf. So, thank you for reminding me to bring up that point.
All right, well, thank you. Well, we're gonna move on to the next item, since there is no action for this item. The next item in the agenda is other business. Are there any other business for CAC this evening?
A couple things. One, I would just remind you that you have a week if something comes to your mind that you have a burning question that you would like to see added to the survey, or some piece of information that would be helpful for you as you're scoring to know. You have a week to think that through. I'll send out follow-up email to the whole CAC tomorrow, since there are a number of people that weren't able to join us today. So they'll have the opportunity as well. So we'll be looking at getting those comments back by next Monday at the latest. In other business, I did include it in the packet, but I just want to kind of state it for the record. Back in March, when the CAC made their recommendations for allocations, you made a recommendation that because we were doing the allocation based on an estimate, once we knew the actual grant amount, if that grant amount varied by plus or minus 20%, that we as staff would make the adjustments ourselves across the board. So we did just get our announcement of our grant amount back in the middle of May. And it was a little bit lower than, wasn't level funding as we had hoped. It was about 4% lower than what our estimate was. And that we did apply the across the board changes as discussed that CAC proposed and council approved. So that went through council or is going through council this current cycle. So it went to committee of the whole last Wednesday. There were no questions or problems. And so it went on the consent agenda for the city council meeting, which will happen this Wednesday. And once it passes through city council, we'll be able to submit that plan to HUD and start the process of getting our releases and things. So as you may recall, for the last few years, we've been getting our releases kind of later and later. I wouldn't expect that to be any different this year with some of the changes that have been happening. We wouldn't expect to see our release of funds and our grant agreements probably until late fall, I would expect. But as in past years, we took all the necessary steps to do what's called pre-award costs, which means we had to publish some notices in the paper and do some notifications so that, and do our environmental review processes so that even though we haven't got our releases, agencies are able to go ahead and incur costs as of July 1st. And once we get our releases, assuming everything goes smoothly and there's no surprises, they'll be able to request reimbursement back through July 1st. And so we just expect that process will be the same. Everybody kind of does that to a certain extent at their own risk, but as long as they document everything back to July 1st, as long as we get our releases, then they'll all be reimbursed. So that process will continue. And then the other item on the other business is because we'll be doing the public outreach in August and September, we don't anticipate having any pressing CAC business in August and September. Now, things are changing rapidly, so I would always say anytime the CAC might contemplate not meeting, it's always subject to the call of the chair. So if something would arise that we would need to meet as a group about, the chair could essentially reconvene or recall the meeting and hold it at the appointed time, or a special meeting if we need it. So from a staff perspective, we don't anticipate that will happen in August and September. We would feel comfortable canceling the meeting subject to the call of the chair, but it would be up to the CAC to decide if you would like to do that.
Okay, thank you. So I guess now we'll entertain a motion to cancel the August 4th and the September 8th meeting, assuming that there is no business for the CAC committee. Johnson?
I second the motion.
Okay.
Just for the record, who made the motion?
Joseph.
Oh, okay. Okay, there we go.
Reagan second. Okay. Okay. So all the 10 first and Reagan second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. Does anybody has any questions? Go ahead, Reagan.
Thank you. I just had one question in regards to the survey, if we can just, I'm just, maybe I'm overthinking it, but just wondered if it would make a difference or how you guys look at it when it's the pick 3 or pick 5. What is, I guess I'm kind of curious is how we use that and like, would it matter when they pick 5 to put it in an order? Like, do we care what they're, like if everybody's, you know, has the same number 1 priority versus the same top 5 priorities?
In terms of the way the survey feature functions, it does allow us to provide ranking, but in the way we've traditionally used the survey, the way the rank has worked without forcing an individual person to rank is that we kind of, you know, the top 3 vote getters, so to speak, ends up being ranked by the number of votes that they got, not necessarily weighted within who selected as a, you know, a choice 1 versus a choice 5. We could look at making some change like that if the group would like, but we do end up getting to a kind of consensus priority just by the number of people who are picking within the category. Kind of a roundabout way, I suppose.
Thank you. I was just kind of, yeah, like I said, maybe overthinking it and just curious how it was used and.
It's fair to ask, and I think with surveys, ranking can, if you're going to use ranking, then you really have to think through how you're going to weight that stuff. And I don't know that we have, at least historically, had a clear enough consensus on, as a group, like which things the CAC would value to be weighted heavier versus others. At least historically, I think, especially when it comes to public services, they've kind of been valued equally as things that are important to do. But down the road, if the CAC would like to place more of a weight on one type of public service over another, then that would be definitely something we could do to support that.
Gilmore?
And I apologize because I don't remember exactly how we did it last time, but do we say pick 5 or do we say pick up to 5? Because if there's only 2 that they really feel strongly about and then they just pick 3 more, or can we say pick no more than 5 or?
In the online, so this is a paper representation of an online survey, and we do offer the survey in both formats. So obviously, the vast majority of people tend to fill it out online, but we do get quite a few paper ones too, especially from the agencies. And if I'm remembering correctly, in the online version, the way the software is set up, it does not force you to pick 5 if you truly don't value 5. It will say you can pick up to 5, but it will stop you at 5, but it won't give you an alert that you only picked 2, so you have to pick 3 more. And then also, the category where you can pick 5 is public services versus housing and economic development. You only pick 3, and I think part of the reasoning for that was that there's so many more things you can do within public services versus housing and economic development are kind of finite categories with not very many things in them. So 5 seemed, when we first set this up several years ago, I think like a more fair number in a category where there's more options.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Anybody else has questions? No? All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I would like to take a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
Okay, who first? Who did it first? Knowles?
Yeah. I mean, she made the motion.
Take the motion.
I'll make the motion to adjourn the meeting. How about that?
Okay. Jessica Knowles, can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Alan Russell, second. All those say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? No? We're all good. Thank you, everybody.